Welcome back to Philosophical Voyagers. I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe. And today, folks, we have a special guest. He is the first, which we hope, of many guests. But in this channel's history, he is the first guest ever. He's known to his friends as Mad Mike. He's an 8-year Army veteran and over 14 years in the defense contracting genre. Mike, welcome. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Hey, thanks, Joe and Dan, and thank you for inviting me to your show. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. As Big Joe mentioned, I'm an 8-year Army veteran. Served in first in the Scout Reconnaissance Platoon, then later I got smart and reclassed to aviation. So, that was a big change. And then after my military service, you want to call it a career, went into the contracting, Defense Department contracting realm. I spent another 14 years working downrange in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Bahrain, and a few other locations. So thank you guys for inviting me to the show, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. And what we're going to talk about today, obviously, is a lot going on in the news, but we're going to talk about President Zelenskyy versus President Donald J. Trump.
And here's the irony. Here's the irony. Trump calls Zelenskyy a dictator. Zelenskyy hits back, accusing Trump of living in a fantasy. Meanwhile, billions of US dollars vanish into Ukraine's war machine, and Trump is planning secret peace talks in Saudi Arabia. Without Ukraine! What's really going on, folks?
Well, obviously, with these two, obviously, President Trump has an unorthodox style. Obviously, President Zelenskyy, he's obviously war weary. Let's face it. Since 2022, his country was invaded, and right now his country is fighting for survival. You have an unorthodox president in the White House, and you have a president who is basically a wartime president in Ukraine. So, Mike, anything you want to add to this introduction here before we get going?
Well, let's unpack this. Okay? Let's put ourselves in Trump's shoes, okay? If I'm the president, you let the president of a country, okay? I've seen the madness over the last 4 years dealing with the Ukraine, okay? Which, in my opinion, when this war first kicked off, and I remember talking to Dan about this years ago. Why did Russia invade? Okay, Russia invaded because NATO Patriot missile battles broke the agreement. They weren't supposed to patrol or set up their Patriot missile batteries within a certain distance of a Russian border. Okay, NATO did that numerous times. So if I'm President Putin, I'm like, okay, you keep testing. You're not supposed to set up your Patriot mobile missile battles within 50 kilometers of a Russian border. You've done that numerous times. What am I supposed to do? I have a right to protect my people. You've done this numerous times. You keep testing me. I remember talking to Dan, what was it, 2 or when did this first kick off, 2002, was it, Dan?
Well, 2022 is when the war kicked off, but I remember you and I took the same class back at Webster, and we're talking about NATO.
I mean the latest Russian
building its borders closest.
All right. Well, let's look at this. So look, here we go. We have Trump right now. He's doing he wants to do direct talks with Putin to end the war. A U.S. delegation went to Saudi Arabia along with a Russian delegation. Now, Zelenskyy feels like, look, he's blocked out of the process. Donald Trump basically says, well, he had 3 years. So again, it's the end game what counts. Everyone knows Donald Trump is unorthodox. And by the way, folks, please like, subscribe, bang the notification button. What Mike just said, you're probably not going to hear in a lot of other places. So where do we go from here?
Okay.
How do we get peace? How?
Now, if I'm President Trump, put yourself in President Trump's shoes. Okay, over the last 3 or 4 years, 3 or 4 years, how much money, I have the stats right here, I have the data right here, how much money do you think we've sent to the Ukraine How much?
Over 175.
175 billion.
Yeah,
No, sir.
I was going to say that.
Over
No, no, sir.
175 billion.
150 billion.
350 billion. Wow, that's
Well,
double what I read.
$350 billion. All the data that I have, I can send to you if you guys want it. I'll email it to you. I'm looking at it right now. The U.S.
All right, so let's say between 100, let's say between 175 billion and 350 billion. Okay, the question is, in Trump's mind, where did it go? Zelenskyy himself said, okay, he doesn't know where half of it is.
That's right. Oh, he must have lost it somewhere. Must have fell under his table, or he locked it in a closet somewhere, or something. And yet, right now, Zelenskyy is shocked that he's excluded, or that Ukraine is excluded from talks in Europe and Saudi Arabia.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. The question is, should we continue as the U.S. to support Ukraine? Because there's arguments on both sides here. The one argument is, look, we don't want Putin to get a foothold in Europe. He could be using Ukraine as a chess piece to just get started. Everyone knows that Putin has said in the past one of the greatest tragedies in his life, the greatest, was the collapse of the USSR. So, do we want peace, but do we give Putin the farm, or does Ukraine have any? Does Ukraine they have to have some security consideration?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one at the time, but I know this. Zelenskyy does not want peace. He's trying to block peace because he's getting all this money from Western countries to keep the war going.
Well, do we have proof of that? Is there proof, Mike? What Dan just said, that statement. Is there proof?
Well,
That's
looking at the last couple of years,
is there proof?
Zelenskyy was in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, correct? He was in Congress on the floor in front of Kamala Harris begging for more money. Zelenskyy, sir.
Now,
as
supporters of Ukraine would say to you, supporters of Ukraine would say, Mike and Dan, is look, he wants his country to survive. He doesn't want Ukraine getting overrun. He needs money. What do you say to that, both of you?
$350 billion.
So it says, but
okay, now if I'm Trump, well, I'm thinking, okay, we sent you $350 billion. What is the rest of Europe doing? NATO was created for what reason? Why was NATO created?
Well, it was created
to counter the Soviet Union.
Post-World War II, yes. And of course, Article 5 is a big, yes.
So what is the rest of Europe doing? We've already sent you $350 billion, bro. We've sent you $350 billion. What have you done? Half of that, or three-quarters of that, you can't account for, which you never should have said. That's the worst thing you could say. Oh, by the way, the $350 billion, we didn't get all of that. What do you mean you didn't get all of that? Who does that? And now you're asking for more money? You're already $350 billion in the hole without any positive results. We can't just keep throwing money to foreign countries. We can't do it. We can't do it. What is Germany doing? What's the rest of Europe doing? They have militaries too. It's not just the United States. They need to start pulling their weight. So from that aspect, I can understand why Trump is doing what he's doing. We've already given you $350 billion. What needs to happen is, right, Germany and these other countries within NATO need to start pulling their weight, because you're just milking the United States, and we're not. What positive results? You're losing a freaking war, for crying out loud. After $350 billion of our dollars, what else do you want us to do? Anyone? What else do you want us to do?
All right. Well, let's look at some facts here. Obviously, Trump referred to recently in the past few days, referred to Zelenskyy here as a dictator, and basically, and of course, Zelenskyy said Trump's living in an age of pretty much Russian disinformation. Now, if I understand, I'm going to look at both sides here. Zelensky's frustration, but the U.S., Trump is holding the cards in this point. Trump can easily stop any future funding. And as a matter of fact, the Biden administration left an additional $4 billion, which Trump can give him as he sees fit. He can give Ukraine, meaning Zelenskyy and Ukraine. Now, Zelenskyy feels when they met in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. delegation, Russian delegation, as I said a few minutes ago, he feels he's being iced out. Iced out. Oh, shouldn't Zelensky be at the table in these talks?
Mike?
Dan or Mike, go ahead.
Come again,
Should
Joe? I'm sorry.
Zelensky be allowed to sit at the table? He is the president of Ukraine, right?
He is. That he is. That's a question that's above my head, right? That's between Trump and Zelensky. My thing is this.
Look, we're outside.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, if I'm a president of the country, I'm getting attacked, I should be at the table. Dan.
Yeah, I've wondered that too. I wondered why Trump excluded Zelensky, but he is talking to Putin directly. And although in public he seems to be on his side, I hear in private he's telling Putin to back off. He's negotiating with him in secret and saying, "Hey, look, knock this off now."
All right. So on February 12th, like I said, Trump did talk to Putin in a phone call. This is according to Politico. And they agreed to negotiate to end the war. Now, the Saudi Arabia twist, what we've been talking about, this Trump's team, which includes Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they met Russian officials February 15th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. What is the goal? It's to stop millions of deaths, millions of more. Well, to stop thousands of more deaths. So
And yet at the same time, Trump claims millions died, just like he says billions for everything. But no,
yeah,
it's about 70,000 soldiers in Ukraine that were
yes,
killed.
yes, and then Trump does exaggerate. Yes, Mike, what do you have to add to this about?
Well,
What do you have to add about the Saudi?
I don't like to get number of deaths. One death is way too many, right? So it doesn't matter if it's 70,000 or a million. I mean, 70,000 is still. I mean, that's more troops than we lost in Vietnam, right? So
Yes.
So we only lost 58,000 in Vietnam. So that's. I mean, it's just. But it's still too many. It's still too many.
Well, Trump is either going to look like a genius. Some people will say this is Trump's style. He's trying to cut through NATO bureaucracy. He's aiming for a deal that can make him a peacemaker, a genius, or a dictator's best friend. So President Trump here is walking, folks, a tightrope. Now let's talk about, guys, Zelensky's line in the sand. Zelensky on February 1st at an AP interview. Zelensky warned that excluding Ukraine from peace talks is very dangerous, and he'll never accept a U.S.-Russian deal without him. Dan, what do you have to-
Oh yeah. Well, it's too bad for Zelensky. Ukraine couldn't function on its own if both the U.S. and Russia were against it. There's no way. But if it was against the U.S., it'd be because Russia backed it, and if it's against Russia like it is now, it's because the U.S. backs it.
All right, Mike, what do you have to add?
Well, I'm going to lost the words on this. Zelensky is lame. Okay, Biden was your pot of gold. Okay, and to my knowledge, Ukraine is not even a NATO member. Is Ukraine a NATO member?
Now, they're not.
So why are you getting involved? So why are you getting involved?
Now, let's look
Why do they have $350 billion of that money? So why do they have $350 billion of that money? Why? They're not a NATO member.
Yeah, I get you. In 2022, he signed a decree banning talks with Putin personally and directly. Now he's demanding a seat at the table. And this is according to Reuters back in October 4th, 2022. So it's funny how even when laws are signed, when things change, politicians change. And obviously I get why Zelensky wants to be at the table, but he did sign a law. He didn't want to have any direct talks with him. But now, obviously, he does. Zelensky's UAE visit revealed he wasn't invited to the Saudi talks. According to him, he was caught off guard. Is Zelensky protecting Ukraine or prolonging a war he can't win by blocking Trump's fast-paced talks? So, Mike, Mike first, then Dan. Go ahead, Mike.
Look, Zelensky, the pen is mightier than the sword, my friends, right? The pen is mightier than the sword. He signed a document that said he was not going to, he didn't want to cooperate with Russia or come to terms with Russia at the table. That's what you signed. The pen is mightier than the sword. Accept your fate. Accept your fate. Now, Trump is trying to help you. You already have $350 billion of our money, okay? So Trump is bypassing him and it's talking straight to Putin. I can understand why Trump is making Zelensky irrelevant.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
So,
All right.
I mean, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Well,
The pen is mightier than the sword. The pen is mightier than the sword. Did he not sign the document?
Okay.
You don't rush at the table. Okay, then shut the freak up. You signed the document. I didn't make you sign it. So don't try to backtrack now. The pen is mightier than the sword. Am I wrong?
all right. No, and now look at the money too. Okay, the U.S. has pumped at least 175 billion into Ukraine since 2022, but you say more like 350 billion. But that's a pretty staggering figure. And then there should be some red flags there are obvious red flags, such as high-ranking officials that are caught in scandals with around 400,000 US dollars in bribes, military fund embezzlement, and Zelensky fired certain aides, but still questions linger. And the Pentagon also says it can't fully track equipment, billions might be unaccounted for. What is that?
All right. Real quick, folks, just let you know Mike is in the parts unknown. If his connection's a little off, that's why. He's doing the best he can. And real quick, let me add to this point. The U.S., here's a little known fact. The U.S. froze $330 billion of Putin's money. And any peace talks, I would take that money if I was Trump. That would be part of helping pay for Ukraine's security demands. Have Putin pay for it indirectly. All right. So as we go on, we talk about the money pit. We talk about what about high-ranking officials, according to the AP back in January 23, with thousands upon thousands in bribes, military-funded embezzlement. Zelensky fired aides, but questions, according to Reuters, still linger.
Yeah. And just the fact that, like I said, the Pentagon admits it can't fully track equipment, and billions might be unaccounted for, according to Gao.
And now I understand here. This is some people are not going to agree with this. Elon Musk, who's involved in Doge, which we'll talk about later, he suggests 50% of the aid never reached Ukraine. Now, to be fair, it hasn't been totally proven, but Ukraine in the corruption index, Ukraine ranks 116th globally. That was according to PolitiFact and Transparency International. Biden's role. Critics say the Biden administration has blindly funded a losing war. Russia now controls 20% of Ukraine. Now, Mad Mike, did Zelensky milk U.S. taxpayers? Yes or no?
Yes, of course. And then to admit half of the money wasn't.
Yeah. All right. So again, Dan, what do you think? Yes or no? Did you?
Well, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And this is nothing new. No matter what administration prior to Trump, the U.S. has funded wars, international wars, at the cost of the taxpayers' dollars. That's among the many reasons why our infrastructure is so bad. Our public education sucks. And a lot else. And people are just living paycheck to paycheck, and it has a lot to do with all these wars that the U.S. is involved in, and the common people pay for with their tax dollars.
Now, Europe is in panic right now. We got to talk about this. Europe is in panic. Europe, basically, John Healey from the UK says no talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. Germany's chancellor basically rejects a dictated peace without Ukraine being involved. And again, the reasonable person in me says whether you like it or not, I get it. The U.S. has flipped a heavy bill. But all you guys make good points. But to make this process go smoother, Ukraine should have representation at the table. Yes or no?
He should. It doesn't have to be Zelensky, but they should.
Okay. And now,
or have, say, the UN or NATO get involved. Maybe the UN could come and help solve the situation.
Now, many in the European Union are saying, well, Trump's appeasing Putin. Now, it may look like that, but again, knowing Trump's history, he may talk one way in public, but he does back channel a lot. So that's why I'm going to wait I'm in a wait and see approach as far as that goes.
But you know, he also didn't invite any European leaders to Saudi Arabia for the talks. It's
No.
like it's as if he's sidelining NATO, according to the Times.
All right, so I'll start with Mike and go to Dan. What is Trump's end game? The U.S. and Russia teams met in Saudi Arabia. Some say in the near future, Trump and Putin may join there. What's the end game, guys? Dan and then Mike. Dan, go.
Well, some think some just want Zelensky. Some think Trump just wants Zelensky out, so there's better relations and less war. But I'm not really sure at the moment. Mike?
I have no idea. Trump's, over this last month,
I'll tell you. I have an idea. Obviously, the obvious answer is the easy answer is peace. Donald Trump wants to look like a genius. Zelensky, look, chances are Ukraine's not getting any land back from 2014. They're not getting no land. But I think Ukraine wants some security assurances. And look, whether you agree with it or not, I think that's reasonable. Now, let me ask, this is a wild question. Ukraine, back in December 5th, 1994, the Budapest Memorandum, they gave up their nukes. Should Ukraine get a nuke and have maybe other nations oversee that? And it will be a deterrent, and also building up Ukraine's army?
Well, as far as mutually assured destruction goes, that is actually a good idea. As far as saying, okay, look, Russia, we don't want to strike you, but don't strike us either. We're afraid you're to strike us. So
it sounds crazy. I get it. But many people believe had they not given up all their nukes in 94, this would have deterred Putin, or at least Putin would have won another way. Yeah, it sounds crazy. Yeah, we want the world to have less nukes. I get it. But
yeah,
what assurances Ukrainian people have a right to live? It's easy for us. We're sitting in secure locations. Does not the Ukrainian people have a right to have security and to have peace?
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I think so.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But then again, you got to put yourself. You got to put yourself in the shoes of a head of state, right? If you're Trump, this is how you're looking at it. Okay, you have 350 billion of our dollars. You're losing a war. Where do we go from here? Where?
Yes.
So that's like I don't come to any decision until I put myself in another person's shoes. Okay, let me put myself in this shoes. Okay, how would I think if I was in this position? Okay, how would I think if I was in this position? If you're Zelensky, you're thinking this way. Well, brother, we've sent you, billions of dollars, and then you're going to tell us that most of that money is missing? Who does that? Now you've really screwed up, because now we've lost faith in the entire process, and the American people have. So where's this money going? You should have never said that.
Well, if I'm going to make a prediction, I do think that, look, everyone thinks, well, Putin's going to get everything he wants. I don't think so. I think it's going to be hard for Zelensky to get back any of the land, which he wants. But I think the compromise is Russia's going to keep some land, and I think Ukraine is going to get some security forces built up. I think joining NATO would be a hot potato for them because Putin would flip out. But they definitely need to get their security forces. And as I said earlier in the video, at $330 billion of frozen Russian assets, if I'm Trump, I take that money. I have an overseer as Ukraine puts their defense forces together and bulks up. And again, folks are probably going to laugh at me. Maybe station some kind of missiles and have some NATO countries oversee that they don't get used. But as a deterrent, peace through strength.
Yeah, mutually assured destruction. That's it. That's what I've been trying to say. Peace through strength. Saying, look, as in one guy who's a skilled fighter is less likely to pick a fight with another skilled fighter. Say one with a black belt is less likely to fight another guy who has a black belt. The two are less likely to start a fight with each other because they can damage one another.
Well,
and
go ahead.
No, I'm saying that if Ukraine had a nuclear weapon, I believe in mutually assured destruction. That's when talks are more likely to happen.
Yeah, again, it sounds crazy, I know, and we're just amateurs here. I get it, but like I said, China has nukes, the United States has nukes. Russia has nukes. And again, I'm for getting rid of nukes if I could, but something is Ukraine has to at least get some security out of this where they can live in peace. So
I agree.
some of the final takes here as we you guys have anything else to add as we before
No,
we
no,
all
I
right.
have nothing else to add.
All right, I don't want to cut anyone off. Obviously, Trump wants peace. Zelensky, I believe, I would say wants peace. Some would say he's clinging to power. They haven't held elections. Of course, there's two sides of that. Some say he's clinging to power. Others say, how can you hold elections during a war-infested country? But we do know this: the next several months are going to be interesting. Final facts, folks: Ukraine has lost over 70,000 soldiers. Russia has taken 20% of its land, and maybe Trump's deal could stop the bleeding. But the question is, at what
What
cost?
cost?
What cost?
So, and by the way, folks, what do you think? Is Trump a genius or a sellout? Is Zelensky a victim or a grifter? Drop your comments
And
below.
please, and subscribe for more truth bombs. Um, and again, folks, we want to tell you this: we are philosophical voyagers. That's who we are. We want to thank Mike here, as he's gonna be with us for a bit. He's in parts unknown, so forgive his connection. And folks, this is the home of free speech for people like you, for people like us, and for everyone. All opinions are welcome. Dan.
Thank Yes, say what you want to say, folks. We advocate free speech all the way. So now we've broken on the feud, the billions, and the Saudi showdown, and other facts you won't get from mainstream views. We have another video about how Trump's peace deal could reshape NATO or possibly destroy it.
That
And
will
share
close.
this with someone. Yeah, please share this with someone who you think needs to know. And we
All
hope to
right.
get 1 million viewers.
Folks, like, subscribe, share, bang the notification button wherever you're out in the world. Hey, take care.